Hello and welcome to the channel. Continuing on with the series looking at the 6 dynasties within the Necron Codex. Today we're going to be looking at the Nihilakh Dynasty. Before we do, today's random shout out is going to go to Gacha Aftons for the comment they made on the Night Scythe review not too long ago. Also guys, some of you will already have seen, but the channel is going to be taking some changes from June. The polls will be open to all subscribers of the channel and not behind a paywall anymore. So keep your eyes open on the subs page in particular, where you'll find our YouTube polls, which will then direct what videos we're going to be doing on the channel. We are going to be removing the Patreon service, but if you do wish to still donate to the channel, we've got a YouTube members area which has its own loyalty badges and custom emojis and all that jazz. So there should be a blue join button next to the subscribe button. So on with today's video. So when we did that poll a few months back, the Nihilakh code scored only 8% in the strongest Necron Dynasty poll. Now I suppose the word strong could be interpreted in different ways and not necessarily mean the toughest. So anyway, let's move on to their faction abilities. So they've got the aggressively territorial Dynasty code, which has the following. So units in the code have objectives secured, and if that unit has already got objectives secured, then each model will count as an additional model when determining who controls an objective. So for example, one single Necron warrior already has objectives secured, but each Necron warrior within the Nihilakh code is going to count as 2 models. Furthermore, it's got each time an attack is made with the armor penetration characteristic of a -1, it's going to be turning into a 0 AP weapon if your model is in your own deployment zone. So then, when the Protocol of Eternal Guardians becomes active for your army, all units with this code can use both command protocol directives instead of just the one. So the first part of the faction ability is fantastic, but you can opt to select this within custom dynasty codes, which really kind of devalues this dynasty in particular, as you get to select the second part in the custom code for whatever you kind of want, whereas with this one, you're stuck with this second part, which turns -1 AP weapons into 0 AP weapons, which is not all that really. However, it does fit quite nicely with their lore being very territorial. So that command protocol that they've got, Protocol of the Eternal Guardian. So Directive 1, each time an attack is made against a unit, if it did not move, advance or fall back this battle round, then the unit receives light cover. Then Directive 2, each time an enemy unit declares a charge against this unit, if the unit is not within engagement range of an enemy model, they can either hold steady or set to defend. So usually you need some sort of terrain feature to do that. They can do it wherever they are. If it does select hold steady, then until the end of the phase, any Overwatch attacks made by the models in the unit will score a hit on an unmodified roll of a 5+ instead of a 6. And then if you choose to set to defend, then until the end of the phase it cannot fire Overwatch. However, in the next fight phase it's going to be a +1 to their attacks. So this dynasty takes both of those directives when the protocol comes into play in that particular battle round. So Directive 1 giving light cover to non-movers is okay I guess, especially paired with the faction ability. This is going to really favour say a long ranged army, so maybe Immortals or Doomstalkers as an example there, because they're not going to really be moving, so they're going to gain light cover that battle round. Directive 2 virtually gives you defensible terrain, even in the open, so a 5+ Overwatch could be mayhem for a 20-man warrior blob, especially in rapid fire range. That's 40 shots that now hit on 5, so you should be getting about 13 hits from that. Then set to defend, I'd find less useful, as a lot of core units can be my will be done from an overlord, or will just be getting mowed down in the fight anyway, so the few extra hits won't be that impressive. So moving on to some more unique things within this dynasty, you've got their warlord trait, which is called Skin of Living Gold. Each time an attack is made against this warlord, you subtract from the attack's hit rolls. So it is a bit so-so, as a lot of the warlords in the codex are just okay in melee. They can be tanky with a 4+ base shifter in unsaved. Now if a melee unit has caught your warlord, then it's already sort of lights out for that Necron character anyway. And if he's been caught out by an opposing character, then that opposing character likely hits on 2s, which will now be 3s. And if they carry a large weapon such as a Thunderhammer or Power Fist, they normally cause a -1 to the hit roll anyway, so it's not going to stack with this -1, because the -1 is going to be capped. The relic in the dynasty is Infinity Mantle. You add 1 to the armor saving throws for the bearer, and not only that, each time the bearer loses a wound, on a roll of a 6, the wound is not lost. So this one's not too bad. Overlords and command barges with a 2+ armor save, even a Necron Lord with a 2+ armor save means that even a -3 AP weapon that's targeting him will still give him a 5+ save, which is almost an invuln save, not quite as good. But if he's carrying a Resurrection Orb, it means he's going to last a lot longer in the game. You don't want to lose a Necron Lord when you've not actually used the Resurrection Orb. The unique stratagem for this code is Reclaim a Lost Empire. It's 1 command point. Using the shooting phase, you select an infantry unit from the army that's currently performing an action. The unit can still shoot that phase without the action failing. Again, something that's assisting here with territory. Doing actions is scoring more points while still firing to push enemy units out. Obviously requires a secondary that has some sort of action, so it could be totally worthless in some games, but really good in others. So that's all the add-ons within the dynasty. So as mentioned, these guys like their territory. They're strong at holding objectives, especially within their own deployment zone. So to mention some units worth looking at when building a Nihilakh Dynasty, lots of bodies is a good place to start. Now unlike the Nihilakh Dynasty, the Nihilakh Dynasty works with lots of models. So 20 warriors on an objective is pretty much guaranteed that you're going to be holding it, because each one is worth 2 due to the faction ability. Immortals are also great, again as they count as 2 models each, but they can also sit in your own deployment zone, so any -1 AP weapons are going to be 0 AP weapons, and if you can get them on terrain, even better. Canoptic Scarabs are crazy good for this dynasty with objectives secured, simply because they've got tons of wounds and very hard to see, let alone remove. You can even give them an invuln save with a Chronomancer to add to this even further. Other high model count units such as flayed ones could be worth a shout, taking a lot of board control with their large footprint of models, especially as they've got deep strike, so they can be taking area higher up the board and then making good use of their objective secured ability. Your other fast attack options here are also key for taking territory and taking it fast. So you've got Ophidian Destroyers, Tomb Blades, Wraiths, all can move pretty quick, and where they'd usually be contesting an objective, then I've just taken them. Ghost Arcs for me are one of the best units here with objectives secured because they're super strong, extremely hard to remove due to their quantum shielding, and then like I said, with objectives secured, these things are still in points for you all game, as your opponent won't really want to be putting the big weapons into removing a very tame Ghost Arc. But points are points, right? So these Ghost Arcs have a 12-inch movement, so if you use it like a point scoring tank, it's going to do crazy good. Heck, I'd even consider advancing it just to get it into the middle of the board onto an objective. Footslog some warriors into the centre, all while the Ghost Arc keeps repairing D3 lost warriors per turn, or D6 with a Ghost Arc stratagem. Maybe get a command barge to fly in, or an overlord to slowly make his way to the area of the board, pop an orb when required. So this is going to really dominate a key area of the battle. The Ghost Arc could be controlling one middle objective, warriors on another. Then the 2 backline objectives could be more immortals or your heavies. So in this case you should be holding about 4 objectives here, screen off all the backline things with scarabs, maybe some canoptic spiders to replenish everything up, create more scarabs, and they can also fix vehicles, so maybe your Doomsday Arc if that's at the back. So moving away from the units, let's talk about how to build a Nihilakh list, like what units are going to go in. Of course it all depends on the game size here, but like I mentioned, start with your back. You're either going to go immortals or heavy, potentially spiders, if you don't like our lackluster heavy support section of the Codex. I personally would take 5 immortals, a Doomstalker and a unit of spiders, then a unit of maybe 5 scarabs to screen off that Doomstalker, just so that it doesn't get caught out in melee, and then maybe another Technomancer to sync everything together. As for the more aggressive push, a Ghost Arc, maybe 2 if you're playing a bigger game, 20 warriors, again double it for a larger game. Then I'd go with a command barge for the orb carrier and the My Will Be Done ability, make him a Pharaon if you're taking 40 warriors. To add to this, I'd probably go with a unit of Wraiths, purely because of the resiliency and the speed, and with objectives secured, they're going to be scoring more points. All of that comes to about 1100 points depending on the war gear. So with the rest of the points, you can fill out all the melee based units, maybe a Catan Shard just to distract, and they can also make a huge mess of your opponent's army. You could even add a Royal Warden to the mix or a second Technomancer for even more craziness with those never ending warriors. The dynasty is all about control. If you can survive long enough while controlling the majority of the objectives, then it's an easy win. You're going to be taking 15 points per turn in the primaries, whereas your opponent will be getting 10 at best. You will need to battle them off of their home objectives. This is why Wraiths are a good choice here, because they can stick around for a good number of turns and maybe even be holding objectives while in a melee fight in your opponent's deployment zone, which ultimately costs your opponent another 5 points on those primaries. So before ending, I wanted to go over my opinion of the 3 best units within this dynasty. So in no particular order here, but the warriors are first. Almost cliche how good these guys work with almost every dynasty, but they've got a large footprint and they're taking board control in key areas. Clog the centre of the board with these guys and make use of anything that keeps them alive. Secondly, I think the Ghost Arc, not only for the repair barge ability, but as a standalone unit with objectives secured that's really hard to shift. Make use of the quantum deflection stratagem to turn your 5+ in 1 save into a 4+ where needed. Then the third and final choice, I'd go with Scarabs. They just win your games, 15 points a base, points for points, they're the best thing we've got in our book. With objectives secured, they're crazy good, partly as they move at 10 inches, then partly as you don't really need to charge, and they can't shoot either, so you will be advancing them almost every turn, meaning they can go up to 16 inches per turn, get into objectives, hiding down and winning them. Or they're just tying up units that are 5 times their points cost, which is just amazing. That's my 3. A few honourable mentions go to the Canoptic Spiders for not only birthing out those scarabs but also providing a solid backline melee defense for your Immortals and your heavy support options. Then the Technomancer just for virtually gelling everything that you've got going. In fact, I've also got to mention the Chronomancer too, just for dishing out those inruns to important objective holders. And Wraiths have been the quickest, most resilient unit we've got, and for pushing our boundaries further into the opponent's territory. So guys, if you've got any tactics or combos to add to this video, put them in the comments below. Don't forget we're doing random shout outs, so get involved in the comments, and also keep your eyes out for the polls, which are going to dictate what videos we're going to be doing on the channel. So if you like the video, smash the thumbs up, sub if you are new. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.